So inZOI is flopping, like it's completely flopped, and we need to talk about it because I wasn't expecting it, being honest. I've made quite a lot of inZOI videos throughout the past month on YouTube, and when early access first came out, my inZOI videos did quite well. But then as time has gone on, my inZOI videos don't really do very well anymore. In fact, I don't really know if I'm even gonna make inZOI videos for the time being, at least. The first issue that I think is really important to discuss, inZOI has come out as an early access title. When you can download a game under the guise of early access, what that means is the game hasn't been released yet. You're just getting a very early on preview of the game, but it's a preview that you have to pay for because the video gaming industry is just a general scam at this stage. In the past, video game developers would actually pay people to test the video games, but now you have to pay for the privilege of testing the game. But the average video gaming consumer doesn't really know what early access is, no offense. I know this because I got comments on my channel when the game first released about what early access was, and people seem to be very confused. As a result, I think a lot of people went into inZOI thinking, well, this game is basically released. This is it. This is what inZOI is. This is a full experience. And then they paid for it, downloaded it, and realized, oh, actually, this doesn't really feel like a full experience, does it? And this is the risk that developers and publishers of video games run when they release games in early access, especially from a big developer like Krafton, because normally we expect early access coming from indie games that literally need your financial support in order to make the video game happen. So for them, having an early access where you pay for the privilege of testing the game, it's actually a really great way to support video game developer that is indie. When I say indie, I mean either a small group of people or just one person. Krafton, this big billion-dollar corporation, is not indie. So when it comes from somebody like them, I think it's a problem. And this is an issue, I think, in the video gaming industry in general. All of the big publishers are doing this, unfortunately. And there are pros to it, of course, but there are also cons, such as people's expectations being this high, but then the game is down here, and that drop causes a real negative response. You know, it's kind of like, I know, okay, I make every video about my dating life, I'm sorry. It's like when I'm chatting to someone on Tinder, okay, you know, like, I don't know if you guys have had this experience when you've like met somebody from Tinder and they look like 10 years older in real life, and it's because the pictures that they showed of you were technically them, but it was them 10 years ago. Even though how they look now is not that bad, because they've given you a false expectation, it just puts you in a bit of a shit mood when you meet them, and it makes you think like they're uglier than they actually are. Do you know what I mean? Or is that too niche? I feel like that's too niche for most people to understand. I'm sorry. What I'm getting at is, regardless of whether or not inZOI is good or not, if people's expectations are up here but the game is down here, people aren't going to be happy. What I would first like to react to is mainstream reviews. I hate mainstream reviewers like IGN, GameStop, Metacritic. They're the worst. I don't like any of them, but we will react to them for the crack. So the website IGN.com, they have given inZOI a 6 out of 10. inZOI is a visually striking life simulator with plenty of ambition, but not enough depth as of its early access launch. Its early access launch is a mishmash of unfinished ideas, and I couldn't agree anymore. I said in my review of inZOI 2, I just feel like all of the new features in there are fantastic, but it definitely lacks a lot of polish and, most importantly, direction. So according to the website GameSpot, inZOI also has a 6 out of 10 early access. The good characters and world are gorgeous. Customization is good. Open world is good. Smooth performance even on a below average PC. Bad day-to-day gameplay leaves a lot to be desired. Overall tone is sterile. The sterile tone is something that I said a lot in my personal review. I felt like it was a very, very like PC game trying so hard to be family friendly. And this is a major contributor to it flopping. If you look at The Sims, what are the most popular mods? Like, we all know what they are. People like not family friendly stuff. people don't want to be, you know, coy. Is that the right word? Like, people don't want to brush everything under the rug and be indirect about everything. Even woohooing in inZOI, it's referred to in game as setting the mood next to the bed. I actually got a comment from somebody on an older video saying that they should just refer to it as zoink, which I think is actually genius and hilarious. Like, my zois are having a zoink. It makes sense. I definitely feel like they're trying way too hard to be family friendly, and that is ruining it, especially considering that it's an ultra realistic game. In a game like that, people expect realism, and instead it's even more PG than The Sims, which is pretty insane. PC Gamer have also done an article. They haven't given a score, but something that they did say, which makes a lot of sense, is that its biggest issue is that it's simply not very fun, and they would have preferred that Krafton gave it more time to cook. Again, I feel like this is another big issue of bigger publishers releasing things in early access, because let's be brutally honest, the reason why they do this is shareholders, because the shareholders want a return on their investment. So in order to make sure the shareholders don't scoop early, they give them a little bit of a return now to show the performance on the graph, because this is what business people want to see. They just want to see things going up on a graph. So if they see a return on their investment right now and it's going up on a graph, this is obviously a good look for them, which is why they often do early access. But it means it releases in a very sterile state. And it also means that the game ends up niching down too early. Hence, the Steam player count right now of inZOI is very small. I actually feel like the same issue happened with Disney Dreamlight Valley. Their Steam player counts are also pretty abysmal. I played that game on YouTube and I thought it was okay, but I thought it was kind of stale when it came out. And because it's Disney, of course, and it's a Disney skin on something like Stardew Valley, loads of people started playing it in early access and thought, oh, this is really, really cool. But because they released it kind of too early in a pretty stale state, everybody got over the game very quickly and people stopped playing it. And now the game is finally in a very, very playable state. I still think it's a bad game, but it's a lot better. And now that it's in an even better playable state, nobody's playing it because they played the game in early access, decided they didn't like it and got over it. And it makes sense, okay? If I bake a cake and that cake tastes like shit because it's an early access cake that doesn't taste very nice, but then a year later I come back and say, hey, I've made a new cake recipe, you're not going to want to try the new cake because the first time I gave you a cake it tasted kind of bad, right? So why would you trust me again to make a nice cake this time just because it's been a year? I think this is kind of like the mentality people have with early access, which is why people don't always go back, which I think is an issue. I also want to take a look at the community response. So we are reacting to a video called Okay, but why is inZOI kind of flopping by the channel Not Malcolm.
1 million copies sold, yet no one seems to be playing inZOI. At the time of this recording, Sims competitor inZOI is sitting at number 77 on Steam's active players chart. This game, which sold 1 million copies in its first week.
How on earth did inZOI sell 1 million copies? I feel like something's gone wrong here. Do you know what I mean? Like does this 1 million, does it take into account do you know what I mean? Like, does it take into account refunds? Does it take into account people getting the free demo? I just feel like this is inflated for the shareholders. It can't be just not true.
It's only
no
being
way.
played by 15,000 people.
Oh my god.
Wait, so he said currently 15,000, but when I just checked, it was about 3,000 as of recording this.
If 1 million people bought inZOI and the game is only averaging around 25,000 players on a given day, that means only 2.5% of people who bought the game are actually playing it.
Thank God.
I mean, it would technically be even less now that it's left in. This million is bullshit. Tell me right now, it's not bullshit. I would love for inZOI team to come out and say where this 1 million came from, because I just don't believe it.
And again, this is 1 week after launch. As a comparison, Schedule 1, which is an indie game that was released in early access around the same time as inZOI and has similar sales, currently has 170,000 active players compared to inZOI's paltry 15,000.
I think the reason for this, genuinely the number one reason, is that inZOI simply doesn't have a gameplay loop. When you look at any game that comes out in early access that's actually successful, it generally has quite a good gameplay loop that feels rewarding. And I think this is an issue, not just with inZOI actually, but with life sim games in general. If you take a look at The Sims is one of those games, kind of like Minecraft as well, where you forget about the game for 1 or 2 years and then you randomly remember remember it, and you play it non-stop, like you binge the game for like a whole week, and then suddenly you just crash and burn and you never ever touch it again. This has always been a thing with The Sims ever since like The Sims 1, honestly, and I think the key issue is there's simply just not a gameplay loop. And I think this gameplay loop issue even extends to other life sim games like Stardew Valley, because again, it's one of those games that you just play like non-stop for a week and then you forget about it. Even with Animal Crossing, how many times have you restarted your island thinking this time is going to be the last, but then you just do it again and again and again when you remember the game every other year? Something that I would like to see from a brand new life sim game is an actual effort made to create a gameplay loop rather than just relying on the players' kind of imaginations to make things work. I think The Sims 4 actually made a decent start on that with The Sims 4 scenarios, but I definitely don't think they went all the way. Something that other simulation games or tycoon games do in general is they will actually have a sandbox mode, which is basically your free open mode where you can do what you want, whenever you want, wherever you want. But then they've also got like challenge modes, kind of like Sims 4 scenarios, where you have a specific challenge to do and you get like a bronze, silver or gold medal depending on how well you do. I definitely think something like that could be implemented quite well into a life sim game like inZOI to make it more exciting. This is something that I see in, you know, a game like a Planet Coast or Planet Zoo, for example, off the top of my head, and you have a set challenge, and depending on how well you do depends on what you get. And if you get a gold trophy, you unlock this item and this item and this item permanently for any game that you play. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just feel like there's something they can do to make a gameplay loop, and I definitely think that has a big impact.
So what in the hell is going on? I believe some people may have purchased inZOI and then realized it wouldn't run on their Nintendo 3DS. It took me by surprise as well. This game has pretty high specs, and many people who play life sim games don't necessarily have high-end rigs.
So I do disagree. I have seen many people play inZOI on their piece of shit toaster laptops, and it actually works. It looks ugly, just like The Sims 4 looks ugly on one of those toaster laptops, but I just want to say the game actually runs quite well, even with the even if you are below the minimum specs, it actually doesn't run that bad.
Secondly, and this is something I think is even more likely, is that many people bought inZOI, but they just don't want to play it right now. Maybe some people knew it would be bare bones since it is an early access game, but they bought it anyway to just support the devs. And maybe others watched all the early access videos and got super hyped and bought inZOI thinking it would be amazing, but then they actually played it and they saw their characters wearing towels in the shower and a giant pulsating heart hovering above the bed, and they realized this was not Goon-worthy material.
Exactly. Can you guys, if you guys played inZOI, can you actually tell me, like, when you played it, like, how long did you play it before realizing, like, maybe this is not for me? Because obviously I've been playing this game non-stop on YouTube, but I definitely did get a little bit bored after a few hours because I thought, well, what am I actually supposed to do now? It's like the live careers, that new active careers that you can do. I thought like, oh my god, this is a step above like The Sims 4. The Sims 4 Get to Work is basically in inZOI base game, which it is, but the live careers were unfortunately not in a very good state. I feel like, I think somebody from the inZOI development team actually admitted this. I believe, I can't find the quote, so this is just like a misquote maybe, but I believe they said something like that. I definitely think it could be flopping simply because people weren't like they played it for a couple of hours. You guys let me know how many hours of inZOI gameplay you actually have. So according to this screen, I played for 5.5 hours. I have actually played for longer because I had access to like a special content creator only early access version. So that was like a different like build of the game. So I technically have more hours, but it probably honestly sits at about 10 to 12 hours in total. And I'm a content creator. I feel like I should have more, but I don't.
Hasn't revealed how much they spent on inZOI. I think $50 million is a very safe estimate on the low end. So if we take inZOI's $40 price tag and multiply it by 1 million sales, we can estimate that they've made around $40 million, which is great. But realistically, that number is likely lower due to differences in regional sales prices. I know here in Korea, for example, inZOI only cost around $30 US instead of 40. But either way, I believe Krafton has some ways to go before it can recoup its total investment, not to mention the cost of continued development.
So in the UK, it's £35. And £35 is actually roughly 45 US dollars. So it's actually more expensive in the UK than it is in the US, which is pretty insane, seeming that we're poorer.
In a video 7 months ago, I predicted that Krafton was going to establish an inZOI partner program for content creators. We're just now seeing the beginnings of the inZOI partner program. Join the inZOI partner program.
So I may or may not have been invited to the inZOI partner program. So okay, I did forget. I just remembered now because I forgot to even reply to the email, which was very rude of me. I forgot to. No, they did invite me. I'm the kind of person that will read an email and I think, oh, I'll reply later, but then I just forget to reply. So I'm not in the program. Am I against being in the program? No, I probably won't now because I didn't reply to the email. Do I think there's an issue with being in an inZOI creator program? No. Just as I don't think there's an issue in being a part of the EA creator network, or in fact any video game creator network. I've been in video game creator networks before and it's a pretty normal thing. As long as you correctly label your videos as ad or paid promotion. I don't know what the laws are in other countries, but in the UK it's very strict. Even if you are just in a group or a club, or you have some kind of perk as a result of a video game, for example, being in the EA Creator Network means that you receive free copies of games or you receive early access copies. Technically, that video is an ad under UK law, even though you're not necessarily being paid. I don't know what the law is in other countries, but I've noticed a lot of US creators, they often don't label their video as an ad. I often see a lot of US, that was my chair, not me farting. I often see a lot of US simmers in the Creator Network. They say, this video is not sponsored by EA. This is not an ad, but they gave me a free early access copy and use my code and I maybe I get a 5% commission on the sale, but they say this is not an ad, this is not sponsored, even though they're making money. So you basically are, or you're receiving a perk, like you basically are sponsored, which is very confusing to me. I don't know if the law is different in the UK or the US. My personal opinion anyway, I think as long as a partnership program is very, very clearly disclosed as an ad, I don't think there's an issue, and I actually think it's a great thing for content creators to be a part of these different kinds of programs.
In all seriousness, I talked about the Krafton Creator Network in a previous video, which was established back in February, but now there's a specific program for inZOI, and they're already accepting shills. I mean, they're already accepting applications. For obvious reasons, your boy won't be joining. And not to toot my own horn, but getting sponsored by a game or partnering with a video game company are the two things I will never do on this channel. I also will not ever sell feet pics on here because that's what my TikTok's for. Yeah. I don't think I'm morally superior or anything, but as a video game channel, I'm not trying to do anything that compromises my ability to keep it 100 with you or to make as many sexual innuendos as possible.
Yeah, I just want to clarify, like, because I don't want like any kind of shit stirring right now. If a Sims creators in the EA Creators Network, it's fine. For me, as a person who posts videos called A Brutally Honest Review of Blank Sims 4 Pack, it would be pretty severe of me to be a part of the EA Creator Network. But for somebody else who just uploads gameplay content or something, it's not actually that deep. I'm just saying, I don't think this is an issue, being honest, the whole Creator Network thing.
But I'm bringing this up because it's really interesting to see Krafton duplicate The Sims 4's entire approach to influencer marketing. I understand why, because it worked really well for The Sims 4, but also from a consumer perspective, I think it's bad for players because it limits our ability to access objective content about games.
And that is why you should subscribe to SatchOnSims, because I am objective and sometimes objectified. Anyway,
marketing definitely contributed a lot to the high sales for inZOI. In looking at the player count, I can't help but feel bad for the people who watched the inZOI videos on YouTube and then bought it themselves because it got them all excited, but then they played it and realized it's kind of boring right now. That's actually a whole other discussion, because as a content creator, if you're skilled enough, you can make any game look fun and entertaining with the right commentary and editing, but the issue is that it's not always representative of reality.
Yeah, and I think this is like a really really important thing to talk about, because if you see inZOI content online, it looks like the game was doing really well. So it's like, why is this game flopping? It's like with me in The Sims 4, people always say to me, Satch, if you don't like The Sims 4 so much, why do you play it? The reason why I play it on my channel is simply because it makes good content for my YouTube channel. You couldn't take a game that's trash and make it absolutely hilarious. Like, I'm not saying I'm hilarious. I mean, I am quite funny. If anything, actually, a game being a piece of shit makes it even more funny to play with, really. So I definitely do agree that you shouldn't always listen to what a content creator thinks or has to say, because they are obviously there to make entertaining content, unless they title a video like review or something.
Anyway, let's talk about Steam reviews. Right before inZOI came out, someone made a post on Reddit that was essentially a call to action. In the post, the inZOI fans were basically saying, let's all post a bunch of positive reviews about inZOI on Steam.
No. This is the Sims community in a fucking nutshell. Like, I just know this is the Sims community doing this. It's always just like extreme love or extreme hate. It's always one extreme or the other. You guys are honestly like dom tops or power bottoms and no in between. There is such a thing as being versatile. Not that I would know anything about being anything but versatile. Anyway, let's actually look at these. Until this game updates its terms of service and offline abilities, is not worth the $40. Currently, inZOI has some of the most bizarre terms of service, and I think it's always online, but I'm not sure. This is a whole another topic for another video, but it's 100% not good. Somebody says recommended. Keep in mind that it's early access and it's still growing its core functionality. They've actually left quite a long review here, but fundamentally talking about the positives and negatives. Somebody posted a not recommended review saying that a lot of the positive reviews for this game are based on the potential it has. I definitely think this is one of the core issues with an early access game. Are you rating it based on what it's like now or its potential? In my personal opinion, you should always just rate a game based on how it works now. In my review of inZOI Early Access, I basically said that it's a fun thing to mess around with, and if you're a hardcore life sim fan, I think you'll enjoy playing around with the features, but you're definitely not getting a full in-game experience. I personally feel like my review is fair in saying that basically like the hardcore life sim fans I think will enjoy playing it, but for the general like casual player, they probably won't enjoy it. That's basically what I said in my review. Somebody else here has recommended it, saying Creatorzoid is a 9 out of 10, agreed. Graphics 10 out of 10, kind of agree. Gameplay 5 out of 10, 100% agree. Performance 8 out of 10. But something I've noticed that even the positive reviews of inZOI are actually being critical of inZOI. So are they really positive? They're not like negative or positive. They're just kind of in the middle. And on Steam, you can either recommend it or not recommend it. So I guess it's hard to capture that middle ground. According to Steam right now, it's mostly positive. So why is inZOI flopping? I think it's really interesting that the game is obviously mediocre and it's not really great at player retention, and it still has a long way to go. So clearly it's flopping, yet it actually has some just really good reviews right now from the actual players, despite having lower reviews from the video gaming journalists. Not that video game journalists' opinions even matter. I think they're full of shit, but I just think it goes to show inZOI is in a bit of a messy state right now. And I personally think this could have been avoided if they didn't release the game so early. In my personal opinion, early access should be for indie developers. First and foremost, indie developers, you put your game in early access whenever you want to, mate. Like, as long as it's somewhat playable, go for it. But for the bigger publishers, I personally feel like early access is better suited to games that are pretty much in their final stages. A game that I would like to look at is actually Baldur's Gate 3, which is a far cry from the live simulation gaming genre. But Baldur's Gate 3 actually came out in early access in 2020 and then was fully released in 2023. And just having a general overlook online, the early access reviews for Baldur's Gate 3 were actually sitting around 6 out of 10 for its early access, which is actually what inZOI is at right now in early access. And when Baldur's Gate 3 officially released 3 years later, it's actually considered like 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10 by pretty much most reviewers now. And it was one of the most successful games really when it was released of that year. So inZOI is flopping right now, but like an impeccable game like Baldur's Gate 3 also flopped pretty much. So I think it's really hard to say what's going to happen with inZOI in the future. I definitely think it was released too early, which was their choice. I do think it has a ton of potential to grow. We are also watching another video from the creator, not Malcolm, called Early Access Copium Needs to Stop.
Which brings me to the second problem with early access releases, and that's how it's used to shield games from criticism. It's almost like some players want to protect early access games and try to shut down any criticism of them.
Which is what we saw, right, with the inZOI reviews clearly on Steam, where people were maybe trying to protect the game. And the problem is the developers kind of want you to be negative about the game. I mean, not all the toxic positive ones don't, but the ones that actually care about their games growing want you to be really negative, to be honest, because negative constructive criticism helps them grow. If you say, I think the in-game lighting looks shit, then it gives them the opportunity to actually change the in-game lighting. For example, if you just say, guys, it's in early access, it's okay if it looks bad, then it never gets fixed. So I do agree with that one.
I would like to introduce today's special guest, inZOI.
You've got a big storm coming.
If you say something negative about inZOI, you will be inundated with fanboys telling you it's unfair to criticize a game in early access. This shit is getting real old real fast.
And by the way, can I just say, I've had mostly very positive things to say about inZOI. Like, okay, you guys know I'm basically like the most hated on Sims content creator. This is my claim to fame. I swear to God, if I say like one slightly negative thing about inZOI, there will be a huge train of hate. It was just a fly. I thought it was a wasp. There would be a huge train of hate towards me just for saying like one piece of criticism. It's like when I made that video, is inZOI LGBT friendly? And I basically said, technically homosexual interactions are possible, but all in-game townies are straight by default, meaning that it's not possible. And somebody from inZOI came out and said that that was a glitch that's going to be fixed, but it hasn't been fixed and it hasn't been prioritized, meaning that inclusivity of LGBT players is obviously not as important to them as other things. Not saying that that's how they think, I'm just saying how it comes across from my perspective. And the amount of hate I got, even from other LTGBs in the Sims community or the inZOI community, genuinely being mad at me as if it was my fault for simply pointing out the obvious. They definitely have a emotional intelligence problem, a lot of these people. That's all I'm saying.
People that follow early access games usually are the ones who are more passionate about the game, and I get that. But to excuse every single flaw in a game and to try to justify every questionable decision made by a company like Krafton just because the game is in early access kinda makes you look delulu. Here is what it boils down to. When you pay money for a product, you're allowed to criticize that product.
This is something the Sims community, which basically is the inZOI community too, need to fucking understand. Thank you.
When Baldur's Gate 3 was in early access, a lot of people had a lot of criticism about the game, but 3 years later, when it finally left early access and officially launched, what happened to Baldur's Gate 3? It went on to win Game of the Year and sell millions of copies. However, I'm not sure it would have if all of the negative criticism of the game had been stifled and shut down by these rabid fanboys.
I think that just goes to show inZOI is flopping, yes, but I think it's a good thing that it's flopping, because when it is flopping, you basically give it an opportunity to like ironically grow and be a better video game, because I would like inZOI to do great. I said in my review, like, the game is impeccable in so many ways. It's got so many cool features that either The Sims 4 doesn't have or The Sims 4 is paywalled for absolutely no reason behind a million different packs. I definitely think inZOI is taking real great steps forward in the live simulation gaming genre, and it's just incredible to see. I think right now in early access state, it is great, I think, to play if you're a hardcore live simmer who wants a brand new live sim experience badly. As a casual player, I'd say no, don't bother, it's not ready, but I definitely think it's an alright little experience and it has a lot of room to grow, and I think that's the important thing here. Even though it's shit in its current state, which is resulting in its flopping, it's definitely in a state where it can grow. However, it's not going to grow if any negative criticism gets stifled by some chronically online people. So I definitely hope that the inZOI team take time to look at criticisms of the game and not just look at content creator videos like mine, to actually speak to real players, because what I think is so different to what like regular casual player thinks, because I am not a casual player. This is my literal job, by the way, to make live sim videos. So I hope they ignore, honestly, content creators to an extent and instead look at what the casual player wants, because that is the wider audience base, right? So arguably they are the most important audience base. You guys let me know what you think of inZOI in its current flop era state. I probably won't be playing it myself on YouTube anymore until it grows significantly, because it's not getting as many views on my channel right now. If you did want to watch some inZOI videos, I will pop some on the screen over here somewhere. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, guys. I will see you in the next one.